everyone. Today is February 18th, and I'd like to take this opportunity to welcome everyone to the Arundel County House Delegation meeting. So we will begin our meeting today with the Pledge of Allegiance and prayer from by the good delegate, Shanika Henson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, colleagues. I believe it is our custom to start with the pledge. And I believe that we virtually raise the flag. I will give us the opportunity to do so. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Our prayer this morning was authored by Reverend Isaac Vineyard, pastor of the College Creek Community Church here in Annapolis. Our gracious God, we thank you for another day of life, and we thank you for the privilege of serving our community together. We pray for Anne Arundel County and for your care and provision for all the people of Anne Arundel County. We pray that you would bring us peace, life, and flourishment to our county and its residents. We pray that you would help us to know how to use wisdom and how to bring goodness to our county. We do pray that you would help us to lead and serve well. Help us to lead from a place of humility, wisdom, and courage. We pray, oh God, for your blessings on each person gathered here this morning, and in your mercy and love to keep us and protect us. Amen.
Amen.
So with that, want to make sure that we acknowledge all of our guests that we have this morning. And I thought I saw a couple of our senators. I think, well, I'm just going to call them all anyway, just in case they show up later. So we have Senator Elfreth, Senator Bidle, Senator Rosapep, Senator Riley, and Senator Simon Nair. Thank you for joining us this morning. If you are able to, I see Pete Barron from the County Executive's Office, and I don't see anyone else, but if someone else comes in at a later time, we will certainly take the opportunity to recognize them. So with that, we have a number of bill hearings today and several legislative bond initiatives to hear. So with that, the first bill on the docket is Bill HB 35, which is Anne Arundel County Special Taxing Districts exceptions is amended with amendment number 306-819-01, which is technical. So unless there are any questions, I'm going to ask if there is a motion to move the bill as amended.
Motion to move the bill as amended.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions? Madam Secretary, please take the call.
On HB 625 as amended, 306-819-1. Vice Chair Bagnall.
Yes.
Delegate Barnes.
Yes.
Delegate Bartlett. Delegate Carey. Delegate Chang.
Yes.
Delegate Chisholm.
Yes.
Delegate Henson.
Yes.
Delegate Howard.
Yes.
Delegate Jones.
Yes.
Delegate Kipke. Delegate Lehman,
I vote aye.
Delegate Munoz,
Yes.
Delegate Payne Melnick,
Yes.
Delegate Saab,
Yes.
Chairman Rogers.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the vote is 13-0 and the motion passes.
Okay, with that, is there amendment to draft a letter of support from the delegation to be sent to the Standing Committee Ways and Means?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all right. Madam Secretary, could you take the call?
And this is a call for a letter of support for House Bill 625.
Yes.
Madam
Vice
Secretary.
6:35. It's 6:35. I mean, I'm thinking you might have said 6:25. It's actually 6:35.
I'm sorry,
That's okay. Yes,
Right.
Nicole put that in the chat that had gotten messed up. Go ahead.
Vice on 635, then, as amended, 306-8191. Vice Chair Bagnall,
Yes.
Delegate Barnes,
Yes.
Delegate Bartlett,
Yes.
Delegate Carey, Delegate Chang,
Yes.
Delegate Chisholm,
Yes.
Delegate Henson,
Yes.
Delegate Howard,
Yes.
Delegate Jones,
Yes.
Delegate Kipke, Delegate Lehman,
Yes.
Delegate Munoz,
Yes.
Delegate Payne Melnick,
Yes.
Delegate Saab,
Yes.
Chairman Rogers.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, the vote is 13-0 and the motion passes.
All right, thank you. So just as a reminder for the following bill hearings, we have two today, HB 683 and HB 697. There'll be 3 minutes from the sponsored and 2 minutes max from each one of the witnesses. So we will start today, beginning with House Bill 683, Delegate Saab.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
You're muted, Delegate.
Sorry. Okay, someone muted me. All right, I'll start over. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Chairman, member of the delegation. For the record, I am Delegate Sid Saab, representing District 33, here to present House Bill 683. Ladies and gentlemen, House Bill 683 is a corrective bill from last year's bill, House Bill 1343. Prior to last bill, the Arundel County Republican State Central Committee used to elect 3 members per district, with the exception of one district. District 30, 31, 32, and 33 elected 3 members, and District 21 elected 1 member for a total of 12 members. The intent of last year's bill was to change the representation.
Delegate Saab, we lost you.
I don't know, somebody keep muting me, I'm sorry. Where did you lose me?
You were talking about the intent of the bill.
Okay, so let me just go back a little bit. So the District 30, 31, 32, and 33 elects 3 members, and District 21 elect 1 member for a total of 12 members, which we currently have. Last year, the intent of the bill was to change the representation from legislative districts to councilmanic district and reduce the number from 3 to 2, since we have 7 council districts versus 5 legislative districts. We also added a large seat to avoid having an even number. Unfortunately, due to drafting error and an oversight, the number of districts remained 3, the number of representatives for each district remained 3, which created a committee of 22. This bill intends to fix the error and make it 2 per district plus the at-large district, which is a total of 15 members. You should have received a letter this morning from the Central Committee, a letter of support, and I sent it to Sienna, as also we sent it to each member delegation. And with that, Mr. Chairman, I ask the committee, the delegation, for a favorable report.
All right, thank you, Delegate Saab. Do you have any witnesses for this particular bill, or is that it?
I have, yes, sir. I have one witness, Asia Rodriguez.
Okay, Ms. Rodriguez.
Good morning, Chair Rogers, Madam Vice Chair, and members of the Anne Arundel County Delegation. My name is Asia Rodriguez, a member of the Republican Central Committee in Anne Arundel County, testifying in favor of House Bill 683. As Delegate Saab mentioned, this bill corrects the initial intent of House Bill 1343, which passed last session, that changed the composition of the Central Committee from legislative representation to councilmanic representation. The number of representatives from each district should be 2, not 3, which this bill specifically changes. With that said, I respectfully request a favorable report. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Rodriguez. I love that short and to the point. So with that, are there any questions from the members of the delegation? Seeing none, we will move on to.
Mr. Chair.
Oh, there is a question?
Delegate has a question.
Okay, I'm sorry, Delegate Bartlett.
Quick question. So why should there be 2 instead of 3? I didn't understand how this is correcting 1343 from last year.
So before last year's bill, we used to elect members based on legislative district, which we only have 5 legislative districts in Anne Arundel County, but we have 7 councilmanic districts. So if you change it from 5 to 7, you end up adding an additional 7 members to the committee, which makes it 22. And last year, due to an error, this was supposed to be 2 to keep it at, it still increases it from 12 to 15, but last year increases from 12 to 22.
Okay, I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions for House Bill 683? Seeing none, the next bill hearing will be for House Bill 697. And that is Delegate Munoz.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Good morning, delegation. It is my great privilege to introduce House Bill 697 to you this morning. It's a very straightforward bill. We have a couple of witnesses to share personal experience with this issue after I speak. But basically all it does is allow disabled and fallen law enforcement officers and rescue workers from other parts of Maryland to take their property tax credit that they've already received and transfer it into Anne Arundel County, because right now we have a time limit on that. And so these disabled and fallen rescue workers, law enforcement officers who've served our state and protected our citizens are really currently tied to their current residence. And we have a gentleman who will speak after me who would very much like to come to Anne Arundel County. And we love our county. And of course, we want to welcome people to come here without losing, the benefits that they earned, on the job working in Maryland. And so it's been cross-filed in the Senate by Senator Ed Riley, and we have a number of bipartisan co-sponsors, many of whom are on this call. So I really appreciate the support. I think it's a very valuable bill. I think it will help practical families here in Anne Arundel County. And with that, I would like to turn it over to my first witness, Mr. Randy Smith.
Mr. Smith. Mr. Smith, ready when you are. Mr. Smith, are you with us?
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. Please go ahead.
Can you hear me?
We can.
I'm sorry. Can you hear me, sir?
We can hear you. We can hear you. Yes,
Thank
sir.
you. All right. So my name is Randy Smith. I'm a retired Maryland State Trooper. Started my career at the Annapolis Barracks before being transferred to the Glen Burnie Barracks. And while working at Glen Burnie on a night shift tour, was involved in a pretty bad accident. At the time, I was living in Baltimore City. And because of the injuries I sustained that I currently still deal with today, I was retired to retire from the Maryland State Trooper. Didn't want to retire, but was forced to retire. Talking with a friend of mine who lived in Anne Arundel County, he told me about a benefit that he received here with his tax, with the tax credit. At the current time, I was living in Carroll County, spoke with the Carroll County local government there, and was given the same opportunity, the same break on my taxes in Carroll County. Long story, my daughter then attended the Naval Academy. I was familiar with Annapolis, so my family and I decided to retire. To move and build our retirement home in Anne Arundel County. And once here, I reached out to the local government here and was told that I no longer qualified for the benefit, even though I got it in Carroll County, because I retired too long ago, and the bill, as it's written, you have to retire within 2 years to get the benefit. So I started my law enforcement career in Anne Arundel County. I worked in Anne Arundel County my entire career before I had to retire, and I'm currently living in Anne Arundel County, and I like to get the benefit. I mean, currently right now I'm still suffering from the injuries that I sustained when I was on the job. Just had back surgery not long ago from those injuries, so I'm still suffering, and I think I just like to receive the benefits that I had when I was in Carroll County.
All right, Mr. Smith, thank you for your testimony, and also thank you very much for your service. So with that, the next witness I have on the list is Michael Shire, or Mike Shire.
Morning. Everybody hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Morning. Thank you, Delegate Munoz, and to the Anne Arundel County delegation. I'm Mike Shire, and I am here on behalf of the Maryland State Lodge of the Fraternal Order of Police and the Anne Arundel County Lodge of the FOP. I'm requesting the delegation support for HB 697. Previously, the General Assembly has passed authorizing legislation that can provide for property tax credit for law enforcement officers and rescue workers who have been disabled in the line of duty. Some counties have taken advantage of this legislation and implemented the credit, Anne Arundel thankfully being one of them. But the credit is not transferable between counties when the disabled officer relocates. There can be any number of reasons for such a relocation, but whenever possible, we should not be adding a burden, such as a drastically increased tax liability to an officer and his family when they decide or may be required to make such a move. Therefore, we're asking you in the General Assembly to support this legislation, which simply gives the choice to your colleagues on the Anne Arundel County Council and the County Executive as to whether or not to extend this tax credit to those officers who seek to relocate to our beautiful county. I'm sure that you'll join me in welcoming with open arms to Anne Arundel County, our state's public safety heroes who are seriously injured serving our communities, so such to the point that they can no longer even do the job that they love. With that, I simply ask for your support for HB 697, and thank you for allowing me to speak today. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Shire, both for your service and for your testimony this morning. I see a question from Delegate Henson.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My question is for the bill sponsor. Going through the text of the bill on page 2, where it gets to the qualifying language to define disabled law enforcement officer, specifically lines 10 through 13. It has some distinctions when it talks about law enforcement officer or correction officer. It's a blanket statement, but it has some qualifying language when it talks about fire, rescue, or emergency medical service. It says, unless the disability was the result of the individual's own willful misconduct or abuse of alcohol or drugs. I have a question on one, how we determine that. And then this, when we're applying the tax credit, if that's the county assessor's office, whose responsibility that is. And then my second question is, was it intentional to not have that qualifying language for law enforcement and corrections officers as well?
Thank you, Delegate, for your question. That's a great question. And my bill actually did not touch that aspect of the code whatsoever. And so I would probably have to refer to legal counsel and get back to you on that specifically. Really, all we did was take that portion of the code that's already available to these officers, and we added in this extension into Anne Arundel County to allow them to transfer the benefit they have already received into our county. So that's a great question. I can absolutely look into that for you.
Delegate, and if the chair will permit me just one follow-up. I was looking at
Absolutely.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate it. I was looking at a similar bill that we have for disabled veterans and their surviving spouses that exist in Anne Arundel County. And that has some qualifying language on the adjusted gross income. And it says that this is available for persons whose income doesn't exceed $100,000 per year. Did you envision any sort of qualifying benchmark for applying this tax credit for law enforcement officers that was similar to the one that we apply for our veterans?
Again, I didn't touch that portion of this code. I just extended it. So that was not something that I had considered doing.
Delegate, thank you, Mr. Chair.
All right, I just want to, before we go to Delegate Bagnall, I wanted to ask Matt if he could provide any additional information to Delegate Henson's first question. And if not, then Delegate Munoz will just please make sure that you get the additional information and send it out to the delegation so everyone has access to that information.
Absolutely.
Matt.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I will also have to research farther into that area as well.
Okay, thank you so much. Delegate Bagnall.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you to the bill sponsor. I had looked ahead of the hearing at the Baltimore tax credit, and I was just trying to figure out if we would be the first county that would make it transferable, or if it is already transferable in other counties. And if you don't know the answer, we can take it back and get an answer at another time.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate the question again. Since Mr. Randy Smith brought this particular issue to my attention, I was very focused on getting this, available for people who want to move into Anne Arundel County. And so that's a great question. I can definitely look into that and get back to you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Delegate Bagnall. And similarly, Delegate Munoz, if you could just make sure when you provide information, provide it to all members of the delegation.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Not seeing any other questions, we will move on to the next item on the agenda, which is a special presentation. It's a presentation to the Anne Arundel Food Bank. And I know we have someone here for the Anne Arundel Food Bank, but just to tell everyone, which I'm sure most folks know, but I guess for the record, the Anne Arundel Food Bank, their mission is to fight hunger, ensuring that all those in need in Anne Arundel County have access to food and basic necessities. Their programs provide a safety net to help clients out of crisis become stable and ultimately work towards self-sufficiency. We honor your work with this contribution. And just on a note of personal preference, I have to say that, as we began the pandemic, just about 2 years ago, I can say that I saw firsthand all across Anne Arundel County through the numerous food distribution supported by churches, nonprofits, other organizations, the impact that the Anne Arundel County Food Bank has had and continues to have. And so with that, I think we have a presentation. Sienna, if you could put that on the screen. And so while Sienna's doing that, I think we have Miss Leah Paley, who's joined us today. And what we're going to be doing is presenting a digital citation to show you in the amount of $850. So I'm going to actually attempt to read this because I guess my prescription may not be quite strong enough, but it says the Maryland General Assembly official citation, be it hereby known to all that sincerest congratulations are offered to Anne Arundel County Food Bank. In recognition of your continuous support of our citizens during the pandemic, we honor your work by contributing our yearly dues to show our enthusiastic applause for the help in our community. Presented this 18th day of February 2022 on behalf of the Anne Arundel County delegation and all its members. Thank you so very much. And so with that, Ms. Paley, I'll offer you the opportunity to say a few words.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. You did an excellent job reading that, and we are so very grateful to each and every one of you for the contributions that you make to our organization. We are so grateful. I don't think I need to tell anyone on this call that the last few years have been extremely challenging for so many of our residents, and we are thankful to the delegation and all of the partners that stepped up throughout Anne Arundel County over the last few years to help our organization meet the increased demand. Just a few numbers, because I don't want to go over the top here, but we tripled our output in the last fiscal year in terms of the amount of pounds of food that we were distributing, with specific emphasis on distributing healthy items. So we went from just around 2 million pounds of food distributed in the fiscal year prior to last to just under 6 million pounds. So we saw triple the output. We had over 52% of people visiting our pantries for the first time ever. We have a network of over 110 partner pantries across the county. We really are trying to make sure, especially in those high need areas with food deserts, that we have enough support in those areas. And thanks to you and your generosity, we have been able to add more, and we continue to add more. And I'm just so very grateful. And even though COVID is something we'd all like to put behind us, we all know very well it's not going away anytime soon. We're still seeing the aftermath, and it's going to take a few years to fully recover. So we still are seeing a significantly high demand, especially when we compare that to pre-COVID. We're 120% busier at our pantry locations than we were 2 years ago at this time. So thank you for your continued support. We're very, very grateful, and happy to answer any questions now, or you can always reach me at any time at the food bank.
Thank you, Ms. Paley. So with that, we're going to move right into our legislative bond initiatives. And I know that Senator Elthroth has to depart shortly, so I'm going to allow her to go first today. The Thomas Point Shoal Lighthouse is actually listed last on the list, but we're going to move that to the top. Senator Elthroth.
Mr. Chair, thank you so very much for the accommodation. I have to be upstairs in about 2 minutes to start voting in my committee, so I appreciate it. The Thomas Point Shoal Lighthouse, I know this committee knows very well. It is one of the most iconic lighthouses we have in not just Maryland, but in the United States. It was just put on a U.S. Postal Service stamp last year. 2 years ago, we had a bond bill to help keep it standing. It had some structural issues, and the Anne Arundel County delegation and the state stepped up to help them, in addition to their just barnstorming fundraising effort across the county to help raise the money to keep it standing. There's one more, pun intended, leg of their redevelopment to keep it standing, and Mr. John Popman is here to tell us a little bit about that. It is not cross-filed in the House because our Senate Budget and Tax Committee is looking at this as a statewide bond initiative, considering how iconic and important this lighthouse is, not just to Anne Arundel County, but to the entire state of Maryland. And with that, I apologize. I have to run the Budget and Tax. Thank you all so very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Totally understand. Thank you, Senator Elthroth. Mr. Popman.
Good morning. I just unmuted. My name is John Potvin. I want to thank Senator Elthroth for her support of the Thomas Point Shoal Lighthouse. She's been a godsend for us. I'm the preservation foreman and the lighthouse manager for the Thomas Point Shoal Lighthouse, and I'm a member of the Chesapeake chapter of the U.S. Lighthouse Society. It's a nonprofit historical and educational 501c3 here in Anne Arundel County. Our purpose is to save and share the rich legacy of lighthouses and support their preservation, both in the Chesapeake and throughout the nation. Thomas Point Shoal Lighthouse was built in 1875 and has been a beacon on the bay, keeping boaters safe from the Thomas Point Shoal ever since. This lighthouse is the last surviving screw pile lighthouse on the Chesapeake Bay, still being used as a nautical landmark, and it is on the National Historic Landmark since 1999. We provide public tours to the lighthouse through the Annapolis Maritime Museum to the lighthouse during the summer for educational purposes. Docents trained by members of the Chesapeake chapter of the Lighthouse Society take each tour out for a 30-minute boat ride to gain access to the lighthouse, and the tours typically take about 2 hours. We are taking more than 550 people out in 2022. In addition, our preservationists maintain the lighthouse cottage both inside and out throughout the year. Countless boaters view this lighthouse every year. The image can be found on posters, on letterhead, calendars, companies doing business in Maryland, and now a forever stamp, as Senator Elfreth mentioned. It's an iconic symbol for the Chesapeake Bay. The lighthouse was transferred to the city of Annapolis in 2004 and has been maintained under a 99-year lease by the Lighthouse Society ever since. The Chesapeake chapter has managed the renovation, and countless chapters volunteers have renovated the exterior and interior of the structure to historic conditions. The proposed project consists of removal of the plywood undercovering on the cottage, exposing the original structure of the lighthouse. That plywood, by the way, was put on by the Coast Guard in the late 50s and is not considered historically significant. In addition to that, we need to remove rust and coat the wrought iron beams that are underneath that plywood. The wood underside will be cleaned up, inspected for rot, and repaired as necessary. The underside of the structure will be left exposed to represent the historic condition of the TPSL lighthouse, consistent with its status as a National Historic Landmark. A penetrating stain will be applied to match the existing finish. Several lateral wood beams were replaced at the same time. The last remaining old tie rod that we were unable to get completed in 2020.
Mr. Potvin,
Yes.
please summarize.
Okay, we're happy to be here today, and I'm going to open up any questions that anybody has about the lighthouse.
Are there any questions regarding the lighthouse? Seeing none, our next person will be Delegate Henson, who will be talking to us about the YWCA Trafficking Safe House. Delegate Henson.
Mr. Chairman, everyone knows that I have
Hold on a second, I have to.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Everyone knows that I have deep affection for the YWCA. Out of law school, the YWCA was the very first job I had as an attorney representing survivors of domestic violence here in Anne Arundel County. It gave me the opportunity to uniquely understand the organization's mission and the great work that they're doing throughout the county. And this bond bill is part and parcel of an expansion of that great work that would allow youth who are victims of human trafficking, sex trafficking, to find shelter and respite and a place where they can regain what they've lost and restart their lives. So with that, I'll ask if the executive director, Ms. Knipe, could offer specifics about the project.
Thank you so much,
Knipe.
Delegate.
Yeah, you're on. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. The YWCA is the comprehensive domestic violence and sexual assault provider for the county. We operate the only domestic violence safe house serving Anne Arundel County. And in 2019, we actually purchased 7.5 acres in Anne Arundel County, building a new safe house accommodating 40 individuals, as well as renovated another property on site that became our education and wellness center. At this point, we serve 10,000 people a year across all of our programs, including attorneys, hotlines, counseling, education, and the residents. And at this point, what we're looking to do is establish the only trafficking safe house in the state of Maryland. And this is specific to minors. Our own program and providers across the state identified this as a need. And at the time, we went ahead and we visited programs across the country who are already in this space because there are very few such programs. So we went to places like Harlem, San Diego, Chicago, Houston, and Miami to look at best practices. This particular home will serve all of Maryland, not just Anne Arundel County. It's intended for 8 youth, ages 13 to 18. Most people will stay approximately 18 months, including the education program with regard to the residents, and they will get their diploma in a partnership with the Anne Arundel County Public Schools. This is a significant unmet need. Across the state, there are only 11 beds identified for children who are experiencing trafficking. These placements, when not available, also end up being places like juvenile justice centers and other places that are not trauma-informed care and do not have the resources necessary to assist. In closing, just as an awareness of where we're at right now, the total project is $4.65 million. To date, we have $2.25 million, and pending is $2.15 million, including the request of $1 million through the state. That leaves us with $250,000 to raise, which is very doable through our fundraising through the end of May. The program is shovel ready. It goes on an existing campus that's already in our holding, and we're looking at a late summer start with a 10-month build. So we hope to have your support, and we thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Snipe. Are there any questions? Seeing none, next up will be the Cold Store West River Market. Delegate Howard.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Madam Vice Chair. Good morning, colleagues. This LBI is for $100,000 for the Kolb store in the West River Market. It's in the Galesville community. I go by there a couple of times a month because I like to eat at Pirates Cove. They have a really good Eggs Benedict, Chesapeake Eggs Benedict. And this is basically an old storefront, I believe, from the late 1800s. And the surrounding community is about 370 years old. So it's very, very, it's got a lot of cultural and historical significance for this, for the community. It's owned by the Galesville Community Properties. It is a community property owned by a nonprofit incorporated in Maryland. It seeks to preserve Galesville's historical properties while balancing the collective vision of its residents, the microeconomic climate, sensitivities of the community, environmental concerns of the West River watershed. So I've been there several times, and it's pretty neat. I don't know if there's panel members on, or
I show a Jim Chandler.
Yes, I'm here. To begin, I'd like to thank the chair and all the members of the Anne Arundel County delegation for this opportunity to address the committee on this initiative that is the #1 priority for the residents of Galesville. I'm Jim Chandler. I'm a resident of Galesville. I'm the president of the nonprofit that was formed by the residents to save and revitalize a strategic location and reestablish a piece of the culture of the village, which has been missing for a long time. Since the beginning of what is now Galesville, more than 300 years, commerce has taken place near our waterfront. Stores and other shops that supported the community found their home where people gathered, near the water where sailing ships and steamboats transported people and products to larger towns along the bay. Also where the farmers and merchants could buy and sell goods at the few stores that sold the necessities of living. The old Cobb store is one of those few remaining structures from the earlier times. For many years, Francis Cobb would sell goods out of his storefront on Main Street. It was a community gathering place. And over the years, the Cobb descendants have retained ownership, but rented to entrepreneurs who carried out those traditions of the old Cobb store. More recently, the old market has become vacant, and the family has become interested in selling the property. With little upkeep, the structure is beginning to fail for lack of repairs. There hasn't been a tenant other than an occasional raccoon for over 5 years. It and an adjacent property are poor representations of the kind of love we have for our village. We have the vision and a plan to return this piece of Galesville history to a viable place for commerce and gathering for neighbors and visitors to Galesville. I provided a one-sheet exum, which covers the facts and strategy. We hope we can count on the public funding to go along with our private fundraising to make this endeavor a reality. I use my remaining time to answer any questions you might have. Once again, thanks for this opportunity.
Mr. Chandler, thank you for your testimony, and Delegate Howard, thank you for your sponsorship. I would remind all those who are testifying, please turn your video on so that we can identify and see who is actually providing the testimony. Are there any questions regarding the Coke Store West River Market?
I think Delegate Bartlett.
Delegate Bartlett.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a question for the bill sponsor and a point of contention. Did you bring us any of this great Eggs Benedict? I was just wondering.
Listen, I would love to meet every one of you down there. I'm telling you, it's really, really good. And just point of personal privilege, you know, I said something earlier. It said, you historical significance. Galesville's old, and it's a really cool community. And it's home right down the street from this is Hot Sox Field. And that's the first African-American baseball team in the United States. And I was very, very privileged and honored to work with former Speaker Bush on getting a lot of funds to help maintain that. So, and that I'm just telling you that to sort of give you a sense and an overall idea, like sort of a 100,000-foot view of the sense and the idea of the age and the historical and cultural significance of this area. So, and that's literally a stone's throw from this. So just putting that.
So
I would love to meet every one of you down there for breakfast, and I would buy, and I'm cheap. So
I wanted to get that part on the record. So rest assured, Delegate Howard, I was going to come back to the fact that and ask, were you buying? And so let the record reflect that Delegate Howard is in fact buying. Also, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank you for sharing that Black History fact.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, if there are no other questions, we're going to go to the next bill, which is also Delegate Howard, and that's the Captain Avery Museum.
Yeah, the Captain Avery Museum's an integral part of South County. It's a $25,000 legislative bond initiative. They had some pier damage and destruction. Let me look at the date here. October 29th on 2021, they had some pier damage due to some strong winds. Both Senator Elfreth and I have been to the Captain Avery Museum. It's got to be 24 times. I mean, they hold massive community events. Again, I invite everybody to come down. The Oyster Festival, the music festivals that go on down here at Captain Avery are fantastic and known statewide, quite frankly. And the scenery outside of the back of the museum is beautiful. So it's a $25,000 legislative bond initiative to help them to replace a pier.
Thank you, Delegate Howard. Do we have Ms. Deborah Gangoff?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you, Chairman Rogers.
Yes,
the
ma'am.
Captain Avery Museum welcomes visitors to our waterfront historic property to learn about what life was like for a 19th century waterman, how Shadyside developed in the 20th century as a recreational resort area, and about our precious Chesapeake Bay and the need for us to do our own job to slow and filter rainwater before it re-enters the aquifer. We did lose our pier, which is a great asset, an educational asset for the community in that storm we had in October, as Delegate Howard mentioned. And it is an asset. Our grounds are open dawn to dusk every day, so people can come and enjoy our view of the West River and learn about what they're looking at across the water, including the Bay Bridge. We respectfully request funds to help us rebuild that pier. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time.
Thank you, ma'am, for your testimony. So next, are there any questions? Seeing none, we will move, or no, we won't move. We'll stay with Delegate Howard.
Okay.
And we will talk about the Wild Kid Acres initiative.
Hey, thanks for making it Delegate Howard's LBI Day. Wild Kid Acres is pretty new to the Mayo Peninsula. It's a Marine-owned, the guy was a former Marine. I've been out there. I know Senator Elfreth's been out there, and I think Speaker Jones was there and didn't call me, which I would have loved to have hung out with her and checked this place out because I like Speaker Jones. And I know I'm pretty sure she came down, but anyway, I was out there. They've got a whole myriad of things going on. It's a lot of community activity. It's a $250,000 LBI for planning, design, construction, repair, renovation, and site improvement, adding a community barn, a heritage rotunda, and some other things I'm sure they'll get into. But let me just say this. There was some like drainage issues sort of in that area on 214 and Mayo Road as you came into the peninsula. And, this guy moved in, cleaned that property up. Property looks good. Took care of a lot of the drainage issues. We don't have a lot of issues. He did that on his own volition, own initiative, because he cares about his community. And like I said, I went out there and, there's goats and chickens and stuff running around. So I was in absolute heaven. And, those type of visits usually take delegates, I don't know, half hour, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, maybe a little bit north of that. I was out there for like 2 hours. and just having a really good time and a really great conversation with the owner and talking about his vision and how he can serve the community and how he wants to serve the community. And with that, I'll let him take it. I'm sure he can better articulate it than me. I just say that I'm very, very honored to be out there and meet that Marine, and he's doing good things. So.
All right, Mr. Martinez.
Thank you, Delegate Howard, and thank you all for allowing me time to speak about Wildcat Acres. So my wife and I purchased the property in 2019, and we decided to open due to increasing demand from the local community to experience what my farm had to offer. We're a bilingual community farm located on the Mayo Peninsula. And when we decided to open, we did so on the basis of 3 operating goals. 1, to inspire the local community through the use of our farm. 2, to improve local economic development, especially during the pandemic, and serve as a local and unique outdoor venue. And 3, most importantly, as Delegate Howard said, we are very focused on climate smart agriculture and educating all those who visit on what those practices mean. In 2021, our first year in operation, all of our demand was generated by word of mouth. We saw over 3,000 visitors for the Wildcat Acres education and visit programming, and over 2,000 visitors through our partner-led events, such as local businesses hosting events on our property as a venue, and more importantly, community impact events such as the Police Smart program, where they would bring juveniles and we would use them on our farm to work off their volunteer hours. Now that we're entering 2022, demand has greatly increased. We're in desperate need of infrastructure to meet the demand and inspire the community even more. We're asking for $250,000 to cover 75% of the costs in order to construct a community barn, which will serve as an open space and unique venue to perform our farm practices, as well as an education venue. And the second structure is a small riding arena, which we'll call the Heritage Rotunda, which will be in the back of the property, which will not only serve as an outdoor space to conduct animal assisted therapy, but we're also going to dedicate it to the Black history of our farm, where the Black female softball team, the Cougars, used to practice on what is now our pastures. I invite all of you to come visit the farm and all Marylanders to come to the farm and experience what a joyful community can bring to you. Thank you all. I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have, and I invite all of you to visit.
Thank you, Mr. Martinez. We have a question from Delegate Henson.
Chair, it's probably more so a comment to the bill sponsor. Delegate Howard, looking at the fact sheet that was posted on the MGA website, the fact sheet doesn't have many of the great details that you and Mr. Martinez were able to provide. I know that when the capital budget subcommittee reviews it, we will want to have access to that information. So I don't know if they've uploaded it in error, but it would be great if we could get those details on the fact sheet. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Got it, Delegate. Thank you, Delegate Henson. Thank you, Shanika, for bringing that to my attention. I greatly appreciate it.
All right, are there any other questions? Seeing none, we will move to Delegate Chang in the Odenton Masonic Temple.
Good morning. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman and members of the delegation. Thank you for the opportunity on behalf of Senator Vidal to present the Odenton Masonic Lodge Legislative Bond Initiative. This morning, we have with us Mr. Dario Foreman, who is with the Masonic Lodge, and he's going to be presenting and describing about their facility there. It's located right in the crossroads of Odenton, very historical part of our county, and they're requesting $75,000 to the Legislative Bond Initiative to the Capital Budget Subcommittee. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Delegate Chang. Mr. Fremont.
Good morning, delegation. My name is Dario Fermate. I'm with Odenton Masonic Temple. Our temple, as Delegate Chang had mentioned, is very centrally located here in Odenton. We serve as a nonprofit organization that is, our goal is to host other nonprofit organizations that don't have a physical place, but more specifically, a safe environment where not only children can participate, and as you all probably have the literature in front of you, we have several Cub Scout packs and Cub Scout troops, both co-ed and boys and girls, that service the local community there. We have several other volunteer organizations that all participate, all kind of run out of this particular building. This is our new building that was built in 1999. and then has been maintained and upkept by a pure volunteer organization. The excuse me, purely volunteer organization. None of our members get paid. So, and because of that, we have our operating costs are relatively low. However, because they're just simply helping hands, there are many things that we can't do on our own. So this bond is asking for support to replace a 20+ year roof, some out of date or very inefficient, situations within the hall itself, but more, and then of course some lighting that is also a particular problem right now. But all that being said, because we're centrally located, we're surrounded by, we have the fortune of being surrounded by many apartments and many medium density housing. It has given us some really great opportunities to participate with the community at large. Some of the things that we pride ourselves on is our trunk or treat that that happens every year now. That because of taking advantage of our parking lot, and that has serviced last year about 1,000 children and then all around the area. And then of course we have other events with Toys for Tots that we like to do. We give out Christmas trees out of our location because it is a very generic building inside. It allows us to be very versatile, right? And because of that, so many other organizations have the opportunity to come and utilize the facilities that they otherwise would not be able to afford. And with that being said, it is again a nonprofit organization. We don't know get paid.
Please summarize.
Oh, absolutely.
Right. Thank you.
So basically, that's it, right? Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Get all
Are
proud
there
about
any? No worries. Are there any questions for the sponsor or the witness? Seeing none, we'll move to Hillsmere Shores Marsh Creation, Delegate Henson and Delegate Jones.
Thank you, Chairman. I am so excited to be here this morning with the brilliant Jen Carr, who is with us. We have been working, my office has been working with her for months on this extraordinary proposal, which you all will see, Hillsmere Marsh creation, which is very thorough. The primary objective is to create new marsh habitat that will reduce pollutant loads entering the South River and the Chesapeake Bay. The secondary objective is to create a new oyster habitat along the outer edge of the traditional living shoreline sills. So I'm so proud to be working with her, and it's truly been a joy. So I'd like to kick it to Jennifer Carr.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me this morning. So I work for the Arundel Rivers Federation, and our mission in short form is to protect, preserve, and restore the Southwest and Road rivers. And we are very excited to be teaming up with Hillsmere again. I say again because we've done many projects within Hillsmere, which I think is important to note because it means the community understands the commitment and long-term maintenance of these projects. They actually already have numerous BMPs that they maintain to the tune of about 14,000 or more a year. And the county gets the credits, the stormwater pollution credits from these existing BMPs. And I know this might seem like a unique request in this program, but the bond initiative has supported living shorelines in Cape St. Clair in the past, so it's not quite brand new. But our next effort with Hillsmere is to install a 15,000 square foot marsh off of the Sandspit Peninsula where their community marina is located. The marina, it has one road going down it, and it's bordered by bulkhead, which has no habitat value. But as we experience more intense storms and more intense storm surges, it's wearing down the bulkhead and the lining. And the community could simply come in and harden everything up, pave over it more, but that is not the best long-term solution for the bay. So instead, we'd like to install about 15,000 feet of marsh, which will serve as a buffer to storm surges and create ample habitat for native fauna. Our rock sills will also incorporate oyster habitat, which is another very exciting feature, and will also enhance a small pocket marsh where terrapins have nested in the past. And so not only will Anne Arundel County get all credits generated by this project, but the marsh itself will serve a community with over 1,200 homes. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And you also all have a standing invitation to come out to any of our projects anytime. I think that's about my 2 minutes, but I'd be happy to answer questions.
Thank you, Ms. Carr, and to the bill sponsors. Are there any questions for this LBI? Seeing none, next we'll go to Baldwin Hall 7 Crossroads, and Delegate Bagman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, committee, for hearing this LBI. Baldwin Hall is a historic church. It's historically listed, built in 1861 at the nexus of Millersville and Crownsville, so it serves the Millersville-Crownsville catchment area. It is a multi-use facility that opens up their doors for other nonprofits and community events. They were, for a long time, they were the home of the Pasadena Theater Company, where I sort of cut my teeth as a child coming up in theater. And but they have some needs, and whenever you're talking about a historic building, it is a challenge to maintain the building, because you need to maintain it to certain historic certain historic standards. And that work can be expensive, thoughtful, and quite precise. So they've done an evaluation of their needs to maintain the building, to make sure that that the building isn't deteriorating. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Annie Medford, who can fill in the blanks a little bit more about their need.
Good morning. On behalf of the Severn Crossroads Foundation, thank you for this opportunity to inform you about the needs of historic Baldwin Hall. Originally built in 1861, this community building has survived being moved twice in its lifetime and has lived on 3 corners of the intersection at Generals Highway and Millersville and Indian Landing Roads. It began its life as a church, but is now serving the community as a location for meetings, classes, and private functions. At this time, historic Baldwin Hall is in dire need of restoration for its 21 original windows, which you see behind me. This restoration includes repairing rotten wood and painting and staining the sashes, sills, and mullions, reglazing the glass windows, some of which are antique poured glass, and adding exterior storm windows. The amount we are requesting is $30,000. Our estimate from a local preservation company indicates the cost to restore the windows at $20,000, and the windows would also need to be fitted with UV-resistant non-glare acrylic panels that would protect them from the elements and save energy. This portion of the work is about $10,000, bringing our total request to $30,000. These 21 antique windows are tall, narrow, 9/9 double-hung Gothic style sash windows with round arched headers and louvered shutters. These are original to the 1861 church building. They could never be replaced. Not only are there no good options to replace windows such as this, but replacing them would be historically detrimental to our building. The restoration and preservation are the key to this project. Restoring the windows would be less expensive in the long run, allowing us to prevent further water infiltration, wood rot, and potential termite damage to the entire building. Our foundation is proud of the fact that it has managed historic Baldwin Hall independently since 1981. We have been able to generate sufficient income to maintain and preserve this building for over 40 years. Our request for funding this project comes due to a loss of our income due to the COVID crisis and a desperate need for the immediate restoration and repair of these windows. So thank you for your time. And
Thank you, Ms. Medford. Are there any questions for this particular LBI? Seeing none, we'll move to the Village Commons Community Center. Delegate Bagman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And much like our previous LBI, this is a community center, which also lost revenue during the pandemic because obviously things were shuttered. That is where the two divide, because Village Commons is a much newer facility. It is in Whitechapel and serves Gambrels, Crofton, Odenton. They offer community meetings, blood drives, weddings, baby showers, catering events where they actually coordinate with local restaurants. But they are in need of a refresh and a reset. as they come out of the pandemic and welcome events back into their space. They have suffered some water damage as well, and simply due to the age of the building and the age of the ceiling, they really need to do a refresh on their ceiling. Obviously, the area around Crofton, Gambrels, and Odenton has expanded exponentially over the last 20 years. And so this is a really important community resource. And with that, I will turn it over to Tori Jacobson.
Mr. Jacobson.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman and Madam Chairman and Anne Arundel County delegation. I'm here because the Village Commons Community Center is in need of a replace of our ceiling. We had our roof done. We own a 8,000 square foot condo at the Village Commons at War Chapel Shopping Center. It's a nonprofit. Right now, our nonprofit status is pending for reinstatement. When I took over the center, nobody had filed any income tax for many years, so we had to refile 11 years of income tax for the center. So we're in good standing with the state of Maryland, and we're waiting for the IRS to give us our nonprofit status back. Everything has been filed. Everything should be good. Our ceiling is in disarray. It needs some updates. We do a lot of things for the community. We run blood drives. We have HOA annual meetings there because our room is so large. People can social distance and use the room for many functions. We have a lot of nonprofits use our center for fundraisers. People use it for baby showers, weddings. We're on the lakefront at the center. We have plenty of parking, and we just need a little help, $39,000 to help replace the ceiling. And I'll take any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Jacobson, for the testimony. Are there any questions? Delegate Saar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the ceiling is a drop ceiling, my understanding, right?
Yes, sir.
So why does it cost $39,000 for an 8,000 square foot ceiling? I'm just trying to figure out the cost. It seems high.
Well, we've gotten 3 quotes, and all 3 quotes within $2,000 of each other to replace the tiles. It's that cost, unfortunately. I guess it's inflation.
Yeah. All right. Well, I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. And thanks for your support.
All right. Thank you. So we'll go to the final 2. Delegate Bartlett. Okay, we'll go to the final 2 bills.
No, I was just waving to my former colleague, Mr. Jacobson.
How you doing? Great to see.
We'll go to the Wellness Home with Delegate Henson and Delegate Jones. Wellness House. I'm sorry, I stand corrected.
Ooh. Well, Mr. Chairman, I have on my list the Rise and Shine Bakery. Do you have us down for the Wellness House?
I have you down for both, so you can lead with one and then go to the other.
Thank you. Well, with that being said, I'd like to start with Rise and Shine if the delegation doesn't mind. The Rise and Shine Bakery, if you've ever been to the Lighthouse Bistro on West Street here in Annapolis, then you're familiar with the intersection of workforce development, culinary arts, and just wonderful community service, food, and gathering. Some of the same folks that brought about the Lighthouse Bistro have now teamed up to bring about the Rise and Shine Bakery. The bakery is built on a workforce development model that would teach people the art of baking. And then they've also entered into several partnerships to be able to sell those baked goods so that they have a sustainable business model. They've entered into partnerships with the Anne Arundel Medical Center, Luminous Health, with Maryland Live Casino to be able to sell the baked goods there. And we have with us from the Rise and Shine Bakery, Ms. Elizabeth Garrett, who will explain some specifics about the construction.
Thank you, Delegate Henson. That was a perfect introduction. My name is Elizabeth Kinney. Good morning, Anne Arundel County delegates. Based on my experience founding the culinary training program at the Lighthouse and then the ensuing Lighthouse Bistro project, We are passionate about the successful outcomes of this kind of community engagement workforce development training program. The stories of success at the Bistro are life transforming. You cannot believe how we've moved people from a tent to homeownership. And really, it's the magic, the ingredients of that kind of community support in a work setting. So we are passionate and committed to continuing that work. Pam Seymour and I, the former Director of Development at the Lighthouse, have teamed up to fund this new nonprofit Rise and Shine Bakery. Why a bakery, you might ask? Our sole mission is to train people in the hard skills and soft skills required to work in any size bakery in this state. The need for bakers is huge. Today, there are 175 jobs available in Anne Arundel County for bakers. The average starting salary is over $18,000 a year. In the state of Maryland, there are over 800 jobs available today. And that income is really capable of moving higher than anything we found in the restaurant business. If you have pastry and cake decorating skills, for example, you might be able to make upwards of $75,000 a year. On-the-job training is the norm in the bakery business. What our experience tells us that when you have on-the-job training, you will not be promoted. Management is given to those who have culinary school baking backgrounds. So we want to provide that to people who have employment barriers and who don't have the opportunity to have a sustainable living. So the work in a bakery is rote. It's not urgent like a restaurant, making it highly replicable for anybody with issues that cause their inability to maintain a job. Bakeries are built around teams. Teams are the really magic ingredient in workforce development. People support each other and their outcomes are based on making sure everybody is successful. Our bakery will address all the issues that keep people from finding and maintaining meaningful work, skills building, hard and soft. Anne Arundel Workforce Development is committed to doing our soft skills training. We have 3 extraordinary lifelong bakers in our board who will be are committed to the hard skills training. Ray Ottenberg of Ottenberg Bakeries, the largest bakery on the East Coast, including Clyde Carr, the former 35-year head baker at the Naval Academy. Our training program will be comprehensive and unique. Our case management will provide support for childcare, transportation, addressing any individual needs of trauma, family estrangement, and continuing addiction support. I think we have great experience on what, in fact, it takes to wrap people up and help them really move through whatever issues are in their way. We are committed to having people even potentially own their own bakery. In any community, the corner bakery is just such a beautiful part of our lives together. And we want to add at least 45 people a year to our graduates who then we will employ. They'll have to apply to work at the Rise and Shine Bakery, but also then they become taxpayers. So we're asking for your help to move this project forward. We know we're going to transform so many lives to self-sufficiency. We are looking for $100,000 in capital funding. We are currently in negotiation for a property in the Chinkopin Industrial District, and we will have to purchase equipment and do minor renovations to get that building up and going. So we are hoping that you will consider helping us.
Please summarize.
I'd love to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Kinney. I did have one question, just, and this is just clarification. Do you have a location? Is there a Rise and Shine Bakery location on West Street?
No, it's not on West Street. It's on Georgia Avenue in the Chinkopin Industrial District. We are in negotiations and we do not have a contract yet, but we are looking forward to that in the next few weeks.
Okay, thank you so much. Are there any other questions? All right, so our last final bill hearing, not bill, but legislative bond initiative for this morning is the Wellness House, and that's Delegate Henson and Jones.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, colleagues, for hearing this very important LBI this morning. The Wellness House of Annapolis has provided services to aid persons and families that have been touched by cancer. The Wellness House operates out of a beautiful farmhouse, and they are looking to add a new location and are seeking funding for that project. I believe we have on the line with us from the Wellness House, Ms. German, who's able to speak about the specifics of the project.
Thank you, Delegate Henson, and thank you, Anne Arundel County delegates. On behalf of our staff, our board, and most importantly, the members of our organization who are experiencing the devastating effects of a cancer diagnosis, we are very hopeful that with your consideration of this legislative bond initiative, that we will follow through with our plan to take the offer from Janet Richardson Pearson, who currently owns the farmhouse at which we operate, to donate a portion of her property for the build of another house. So those of you who don't know much about Wellness House of Annapolis, we provide free non-medical support services to individuals and families affected by cancer. And we operate from a beautiful, warm, welcoming property that Janet Richardson Pearson has donated for over 10 years to us. And at this wonderful property, we offer mental health, individual counseling for everyone in the families who are going through that cancer diagnosis, because we acknowledge that when somebody gets cancer, it's the entire family who goes through the experience. So for nearly a decade, Janet Richardson Pearson has donated the use of this beautiful property for $1 rent each year. The real truth of the matter is we've outgrown this beautiful house, and also it is not ADA compliant, and we have some challenges with the stairs with some of our members as well. In addition, our services and our demand for our services are increasing year over year. So we're seeing on average 107 member visits per week for these services that are so needed. And as stated in the county's Poverty Amidst Plenty, it's so important that we maintain free services for these. These needs are great, and mental health and poverty are of greatest concern. The cost of cancer care, which is the second highest cause of death in Anne Arundel County, is rising at twice the rate of other healthcare costs. We are just so blessed to have over 200 volunteers who help us with these services, again, that are increasing year over year. We have received 289 new members in 2021, a 64% increase from 2020. So we're fortunate that Janet Richardson Pearson has generously offered to donate a portion of her property, but we have to build a house on that property. So part of that, we've done some fundraising for $500,000, and we've raised those funds, and we're asking for another $100,000 grant for consideration.
Thank you.
Final words, just wanted to share in 2021, counseling sessions at Wellness House of Annapolis have increased by 220%. Again, reflecting the growing need for our free services.
Thank you, Ms. Sherman. Are there any questions from the members of the delegation? Seeing none, I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone for joining us this morning at the Anne Arundel County House Delegation meeting. That concludes all of our LBIs and our agenda for this morning. Is there a motion to adjourn?
To adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
It moved and properly seconded. Everyone have a wonderful weekend. Thank you.